Russians are so suspicious of anything that's made in Russia, be it the vaccine or education or anything that's made in Russia. There are brands, Russian producers, who pretend to be foreign, for example. They think of foreign sounding brand names to sound more attractive to the Russian consumer. I don't know if
Mhm.
it's the same case anywhere else in any other country in the world, but seems to be an interesting feature here in Russia.
Yes, I'm not sure if it's a uniquely Russian thing, but it's certainly it's much more marked here. I mean, to be honest, we went the Brits um, went through a long period of mistrusting certain areas of our own industry. Most of us Brits, if we wanted a car, we wanted a German car, because we knew that the quality was better, and there was a lot of um, this same kind of cynicism towards anything that was made in Britain. Um, the difference is that we have sort of moved on from that. In Russia, there's still this. I mean, I used to have a Russian car. I had to overcome so much skepticism from especially from my Russian friends. When I said I'm going to buy a Russian car, they were like, "Chris, you are insane." And then persuading them that it actually wasn't such a bad car after all was almost impossible. There will always be this skepticism in Russian consumers about stuff that they make, certainly for the next few generations. Is that preferable, or is that worse than someone who thinks that anything their country makes must be the best in the world because they made it? I kind of prefer um, the Russian attitude, be a little bit skeptical, but at least you're being sort of modest and you're not being over boastful.
Yeah, and maybe Russians need some, confirmation of or acceptance or recognition. That's the word that I was looking for. Recognition or in the West or in the East, outside of the country. And it's interesting how this vaccine was received first in the world, like in the West, and in Russia too. A lot of people here were agreeing with the point of view that existed outside of the country, saying that, oh, yes, we're not sure if we should be proud of this vaccine, that we were
Mhm.
the first nation to register it. Should we wait a little bit, or should we wait till we get other vaccines here? But now things have reversed, because we hear that Sputnik is not such a bad thing, and it's being accepted abroad. And we hear every day in the news that
Mhm.
maybe it's not such a bad thing.
I mean, I'm now seeing on my particularly on like my Facebook feed, particularly in not so much in St. Petersburg, but in Moscow, lots of my expat friends um, showing a photograph of them. They've just walked out the Sputnik V vaccination center, where next to their local shopping center or whatever. And it's like, I've done the jab kind of thing. Whereas if I talk to certain Russian friends of mine, they are still quite skeptical about it. It does show the difference between Russians and the West. That as soon as Sputnik V came out with this sort of record speed, the West started out, very, very suspicious that something is really badly wrong. Cannot make a vaccine that quickly, um, and I would say the Russian reaction to that at the people level was, don't underestimate us because we probably can. But at the same time, they're still not really quite sure about how effective this thing is going to be. Then, nothing majorly bad happens with this vaccine. The coverage between the Pfizer vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine in the Western press, they were the only vaccines that were actually mentioned. There was a long time where, other than the coverage of why has it come out so quickly, they didn't mention Sputnik again in the press. And then, as you say, in the last month or so, another paper came out in the Lancet, the British Medical Association journal, and now it is looking like it's an effective vaccine. But the Russian standpoint, I would say, has not changed that much. The Western standpoint has gone from this is ridiculous. This cannot happen. To, oh my God, it's the best vaccine in the world. Can we have some of it, please? But the Russian attitude hasn't really changed.
But what about the misconceptions that exist today on both sides?
You're right about the Football World Cup. That was very interesting. This sort of month-long period of people coming to Russia to watch the football, and almost invariably the response was, certainly from my compatriots, oh my God, it's not that bad. Or, oh, it's fantastic. Look at all the pubs. There's so many Irish bars here, kind of thing. And it was this sort of month-long, oh my God, it's not bad. But then the World Cup ended. The momentum was lost almost instantly. The World Cup was like this little dream of Russia isn't so bad kind of thing. It's one of the lessons I first learned here. It's one of the things that Russia, the most important life lesson that Russia ever taught me, is never to confuse a government and a people. Because I wouldn't like, as a Brit, for people to think that I am like Boris Johnson, or that I am like Theresa May, or I'm like David Cameron or Tony Blair. They're the people who govern us. They are separate from us. And I think that the West make a mistake, that they think that the Russians are like the Russian people are like the Russian state. And they are two very different things. I mean, they're obviously interlinked. But I think certainly one of the resurgences I've seen is everyone thinking that that Russia has kind of reverted to type. It's like the Cold War is back again. It's a cultural Cold War that the West thinks there was this time in the 90s and the noughties where we thought maybe things were getting better, but now everything's back to how it was. It's a very comfortable position for people to go back to. People don't want to be surprised, I think, sometimes, especially about Russia. They have this idea that is, especially my generation and the people sort of 10, 15 years older and younger than me, we grew up in the Cold War with Russia being the enemy. It's ingrained in our nature, and I think it's the same on the Russian side, to a lesser extent, I have to say, because Russia never saw Europe as Soviet Russia never saw necessarily Europe as the enemy. The United States was the enemy. That's a different thing. Europe with the so and so's in between. But I think certainly from the Western point of view, it's been very easy to go back into this stereotype of Russia as this totalitarian regime, and all the people in it are basically potential infantry. Again, to answer a question, the stereotypes are coming back in force because the political climate, which I have to say neither side is doing much to help. If in some way, just the opposite.